Reef off Cairns, Australia is the world's top black marlin hotspot. It wasn't discovered until 1966. This action is more the rule than the exception, and this is the story of the part we played over a period of 7 years. A dozen or more 2,000-pound plus monsters like this one have been hooked and lost. The world all-tackle record is 1,560 pounds. We're nearly a quarter of a mile away, but our telephoto lens brings us close. They're so huge they can hardly get out of the water. But let's start at the beginning, 1966, the year of discovery. We cruised the 1,600 miles from Sydney to Cairns in a 38-footer. We take on fuel at Brampton Island. It's a long, long way in a small boat. But we're well fed, Dolly sees to that. "34 miles offshore from Cairns, we turn on our echo sounder and locate the drop-off. We put a bait over and wait. These are not, at the time, proven waters. Within 20 minutes, the line snaps out of the outrigger, and I'm in business. It was my heaviest marlin to date, and I played him gently. We couldn't get him aboard, and until now the fish hadn't been big enough for fish doors in the stern. So we towed him in. In those days the club had no weigh station, but our ship's scales weighed to 800 pounds, just enough to let us know we had a claim for a 26-year-old Australian record in the line class. The very next day, we locate the drop-off again, and a nice bonita hits the water. The bait's out, so we settle down. The mate yells, "Fin," behind the bait. But the skipper has a better view and hits the throttle. It's a bait-stealing hammerhead shark. He chases the bait right up to the stern of the boat. another bait, and it isn't long before another fin. Behind the bait. Watch for it. Is it another shark? It's very deceptive, we're not sure. But before we can decide, there he is, a black marlin in the air. Dolly's in the chair and the battle's on. He doesn't want to come in. Watch this chump. A beauty. It's 100 in the shade and Dolly calls for iced water. She is really warm. Pour it on me, she says, and the battle starts all over again. The washdown hose seems to do the trick and she starts to gain a bit. It's quite obvious to everyone she has an Australian record claim. He weighed 655 pounds, a new women's record. By sundown, we had a tired gal on our hands, sleepy, satisfied, and sunburned. It's festival time in Cairns, and the fishing club entered out 2 record marlin in the procession. We labeled them, well, naturally, his and hers. "1,600 miles back to Sydney. The next year, we road trailer a 25-footer from Melbourne all the way to Cairns, over 2,000 miles. It's really an experiment in speed to get more fishing time. We certainly get there a lot quicker, and the very first day in the small boat, Dolly gets a small fish. We were really fishing for bait. But it turned out to be a women's world record tangigi, or Spanish mackerel as they're known locally, in the 20-pound line class. Little boat, big bait. A crash strike. Not big, but a good test for the new boat. The skipper says we must boat our first marlin in the new boat. It's bad luck if we don't. So we gaff him. But can we get him aboard? We can and do. I must say we looked a bit ridiculous as we came into port with the big fish in the little boat. Still no way station at Cairns. Our fish wasn't wasted. The oceanarium fed into the turtles and crocodiles. This year an airline offered a $1,000 prize for an Australian record, so we deliberately set out to get one. And it didn't take me long to get into business. There he is. He's nearly ours. A splash of water will prevent dehydration until we can get him to the way station and find out if we've won the $1,000 prize. Dolly's wondering if he'll make the weight. By the way, the club now has a fine way station. The weighmaster confirms the prize is ours and we pose for pictures. As we begin our next trip, we decide it's time we contributed to the knowledge of the movements of black marlin, which is so much sought after by some nations as food. The U.S. government supplied us with special tags for the experiment. They consist of numbered yellow plastic tubing with a dot on the end. These are to be inserted in the marlin's shoulder. There's an address for the finder, also promise of a reward. Ethel Dombrain has presented a perpetual trophy for the most marlin tagged and released in Australia each year. It's very much at home in our trophy room. You know, the smaller fish always seem to put up the best fight. If they knew we were going to turn them loose, maybe they wouldn't be quite so stubborn. This, according to the records, was the very first tagged black marlin recovered. He was free for 364 days and was caught by a Japanese longliner 200 miles north. The tag goes in and I get ready to cut the wire. The tag flag tells the story. For diversion, we go ashore on a sand cay and Dolly makes friends with a ball of fluff. It's nice watching your friends catch fish, especially records like Steve and this dolphin fish. He's no relation to the porpoise, by the way. This was the club president's best fish. So with the flag flying, we take him in and weigh him. You promised me a fish, but this is ridiculous. We hold it for the photographer. It's now the third year, and we haven't been able to land the big fella, although we've had quite a few on. one's not a 1,000-pounder, so out comes a tagging pole and we release him. In 1968, we entertained an old friend, Prime Minister Harold Holt, on what was to be his last birthday. He added to Dolly's shell collection. His kind of fishing differed from ours, but it was his birthday, so we head for the Outer Barrier Reef. He loads the spear gun given to him by President Johnson and is away. He was a very good spear fisherman, as you can see by this batfish. He soon filled the cockpit, but a few weeks later he disappeared in the sea, enjoying the sport he loved so well. For the fourth season, we go back to the 38-footer. She's not as fast, but a lot more comfortable. We usually make Brampton Island our halfway stopover on the way to Cairns, one of the most pleasant islands on the Barrier Reef with plenty to do. Especially when your own shack is always waiting for you. TAA's air terminal was finished long before Sydney's Opera House. We work up an appetite for lunch on the water skis. Dolly shows off a haul of tangiga, Spanish mackerel, caught from an outboard. The sunsets are glorious, but we must be away for our fourth year after the big fellows off Cairns. With some time to spare, we agree to help get some film for the TV network program American Sportsman. The late Gypsy Rose Lee comes aboard with tons of cameras and sound equipment. Gypsy hasn't caught a marlin before, so I show her what to do. The bait's out, and we get a strike. The cameras crank away, and so does Gypsy. She did very well for the first time, and Dolly helps Kevin tail rope her marlin. Then it's congratulations from all. For the camera, but we meant it. He wasn't a big fish, but the network cameraman got some very good action. It was Gypsy's first and last marlin. Ernest Borgnine of McHale's Navy fame was next. Still the tons of camera gear. We plot plot a course of action and head for the reef. Ernie was a real sportsman and loved every minute of it. We rigged up a big bait for him. Dolly on the fly bridge spots a marlin near the bait. And we're away. His photographers record Ernie catching his first marlin in Australia. Ernie soon has him alongside. "You got tags?" he inquired. "Yep." "Okay, let him go," and we did. With the tag, of course, and he jumped for joy after he was released. After 5 years of unsuccessful attempts to land a 1,000-pound black marlin off Cairns, we take off for the USA to buy a boat that will enable us to stay out on the reef until we succeed. On a demonstration trip off Florida, we witnessed a terrible accident. A boat literally blows up right under our noses. Luckily, the only 2 men aboard were on the fly bridge and received no injuries. We picked them up and called the Coast Guard on the radio. Their boat was a complete write-off. We bought the boat we were on, a 53-footer, and everybody laughed when they saw the size of the fish door we cut in the stern. Dolly named her Blue Rhapsody, and I put the letters on. We cruised her up the inland waterway, a memorable trip from Miami to Savannah, Georgia, where we made her ready to be loaded on a freighter bound for Australia. She arrives in Sydney okay after we load her in Savannah, and here she is, and her props bite the Pacific for the very first time. She's quite a craft, one we couldn't possibly duplicate here. Within a week, we're off for the Barrier Reef, 1,600 miles north of Sydney, and our 5th year after the big black marlin. We're a couple of weeks early, so at Cairns we pick up our old pal Vince Vlasov and head for Princess Charlotte Bay, a few hundred miles north. A Barracuda comes aboard. It's strictly a pleasure cruise. At Cape Melville, we lower the dinghy and go ashore. While Dolly fossicks for shells, we collect a gallon of the most luscious oysters you ever tasted in your life. We paddle quietly up a creek from the Kennedy River, and Vince demonstrates the skill he learned from an old Aborigine in spearing mud crabs. These were prize specimens, and boy, oh boy, did they taste good. And there were barramundi galore, the world's finest eating fish. We're past the point of no return, and it's get fuel or else. So we head inland up the Kennedy River and turn into the Annie River to the famous Annie River Landing at Marina Plains Station. Yes, we could get fuel, but he'd have to drive his four-wheel vehicle 35 miles to get it, if they had any. had some, and we became the first boat ever to refuel at the Annie River landing. But it's marlin time again. And we bring a fair-sized one alongside to check his size. It's very difficult to judge their size when they're jumping. I gaffed him lightly in the shoulder until we can size him up. He won't make the weight, and he's not hurt, so we put a tag in his shoulder and release him. It's so much more rewarding than hanging them up just to take pictures. Drop anchor at one of the small sand cays, launch the dinghy, and go ashore to investigate the disastrous crown of thorns plague. We find the crown of thorns all right, also barren reef where they've eaten their way through, leaving only desolation behind them. A distant relative of the familiar starfish, these creatures attach themselves to the coral by the cups of their tentacles and devour the animal life in the coral, leaving only dead forests behind them. They have already killed vast areas of the Great Barrier Reef. Unless they can be checked, the entire reef may be destroyed. This is only a drop in the bucket. We didn't get our 1,000 pounder the 6th year, but it's the 7th year now, and Dolly catches a bait and we start to troll. It's a big crash strike from the blue, and we don't know what size it is. He goes down and I pump to bring him up. He feels big. He clears the water, our pulses quicken, he is big. 300, 400 yards straight down. I finally get him up, and he's like a team of runaway mules. He nearly pulls me overboard, but I work on him to the limit of the 130-pound breaking strain line. We have a new mate, Bill, and he grabs the 30 feet of wire you're allowed at the end of your line. Bill's strong and fearless. To get his hands tangled in the wire could mean joining the fish or no hands. But he knows his job. I've got the gaff ready, and the skipper's trying to keep him from going under the boat. I reach out with the gaff, miss, and there goes my hat. Next time I get the gaff into his back and he settles down a bit. So the skippers laughed in Florida when I had the huge door put in the stern. Now you can see why it has to be big. Two people who contributed so much to his capture size him up, Dolly on the camera and Charlie on the wheel. That's about the proudest flag we've ever flown. We are 60 miles from the scales and still not sure if he'll reach the magic figure, 1,000 pounds. So a sheet and some water will help keep the weight up. At the weigh station, eager hands help unload him. There were many oohs and ahs as his head clears the wall. Don't keep me in suspense, Jock. Let's weigh him. Did he make it? With some to spare, says Jock. 1,086 pounds. 23 years of game fishing, 7 years of concentrated toil and dedication in the same area, not to mention the expense, and we've finally weighed a 1,000-pound black marlin. We'd kept champagne chilled for 7 years just for this occasion. Dolly and Charlie had been with me every day, so maybe I can be forgiven for this bit of horseplay. Next day was a lay day, and Dolly had friends with a pair of homeless cats on the wharf. They relished the bowl of milk she gave them. In fact, they drank like milk was going out of fashion. Now everybody's happy. Anyway, the pressure's off now, and we find time to do a bit of snorkeling over Ruby Reef. If you've never stuck your head under the water on the Barrier Reef, you have no idea how beautiful and fascinating it can be. A poisonous but not vicious sea snake breaks up the party. In the cockpit, Dolly and the crew sort the shells they've found. Next day is a holy terror. There's a big swell from the southeast and wind on top. But we're here, so we may as well give it a go. And there he is. It's really too rough to fish, and he's a candidate for a tag. Now watch this next jump. He almost comes aboard. Wow, that was close. If the skipper hadn't shot ahead, he would have joined us in the cockpit. He's tiring now, and no wonder. We get him back and lead him alongside for the tag. He's 500 or 600 pounds and very happy with his freedom, believe me. We haven't tagged him or cut the wire yet, but any minute now. There goes the tag. And the wire cutters. A very happy fish. That afternoon behind the reef we have a visitor. He's an ordinary sparrow, and we're at least 35 miles offshore. He takes a few sips of water and stays the night. Next day he perches on the windscreen and takes in the action. He must have been caught in a heavy wind to be brought so far from land. Dolly feeds him breakfast cereal and breadcrumbs. He soon gets his strength back and takes over the fly bridge. fact, he starts chirping and even has a bath in a saucer. On the third morning, this was the last we saw of him. I'm sure he had enough strength to fly to the shore. We're trolling again. The world record on 130 pounds breaking strain line is 1,560 pounds. The world record for 80-pound line is 1,077. So we decide we want a world record for Cairns. It'll be easier to find a fish around 1,100 pounds than 1,600, so we're using 80-pound line. Just when we think we've got him licked, he puts on steam and I have to go to work on him hard again. Bill's got the wire, but he's as strong as a stallion. It's impossible to hold him. The wire's to hand again, and he's going under the boat. The skipper shoots ahead, but Bill is able to hang on. He takes a double rap. I'm ready with the gaff. Bill takes another double, and another. Just a little bit closer. But he's still too strong to hold. I get back in the chair to bring the wire to the mate's hands again. He's back, and Bill is really pulling wire. Kevin's waiting with the gaff this time, but he's just out of reach. But Bill is able to hold him and brings him up from the deep. Kevin makes a pass with the gaff and misses. Then he reaches past Bill and gets the gaff in. But the marlin is far from subdued. I come up with a second gaff and finally get it in. The marlin still shows signs of breaking away. Talk about a shower, we got a monsoon. Even Dolly, filming on the fly bridge, was soaked. The camera lens got it too. Charlie leaves the wheel, grabs a hand gaff and says, "I'll hold his tail while you get a rope over it." Now this sounds like a good idea, but we didn't reckon on the power of that tail. There goes the tail rope and Charlie. Kevin's got another tail rope, but it doesn't last long. So we just sit tight and wait for the storm to pass. Luckily, the gaff's held. When it's over, we lead the marlin alongside and measure him with a gaff pole. We don't want to take him 60 miles to the scales if he's not in world record class. We then measure the gaff pole. And Bill says he could be the fish. We haul him aboard, a tough job, believe me. We advertise our success and head for port. Dolly puts the sheet over him and I drag out the water hose. It's said that dehydration can claim up to 10% of a big fish's weight in this climate. When he goes up, everyone says he's a cinch to be a world record. I think he's over 1,000, but my pessimism won't let me hope for a world beater. The scales are balanced, there's a hush, and Jock yells, "He made it!" He weighed 1,098 pounds for a new world record in the 80-pound line class. After 7 years, we've finally made it. At anchor behind the reef, there's usually a resident groper. We feed him and tease him with old baits. He always seems to come back for more. This time he gets it down. There's no hook in it, and he's away. Wall says, "Let me show you how to land one of these babies." And he puts on a pair of gloves and hauls away at Mr. Groper. "I've got him coming now," says Wall, but Mr. Groper has other ideas. He came back, but a much wiser groper. One day, Charlie takes the backbone out of a 20-pound tangigi with a saw-edged tube so it will swim naturally. No one has yet weighed 3 marlin over 1,000 pounds in one season, so we're trying for a third. That's the backbone coming out of the tube. We put the bait over, and believe it or not, we've soon got a strike. He's big, all right. At least he throws a lot of water about as I put the pressure on, this time on a 130-pound line. The wire's to hand, and by comparison, he's pretty tame, as I get out of the chair and sink the gaff. Then we get a tail rope on him. The position of the hook shows that he wasn't hurt. But I suppose the bigger they come, the harder they fall. We drag him aboard and Dolly says, "That's 3 over 1,000. He's certainly taking up more space than the other two. We had tagged and released several marlin on this trip, and we show a flag for each one under the capture flag as we head for Cairns. This is getting to be a habit, but a very gratifying one after so many years of trying. He's the longest marlin we've ever seen. In fact, we couldn't get him high enough to lift his bill off the wharf. Then we had to lower him and adjust the rope so that we could lift his bill off the wharf. If he had the condition, he'd certainly be a world beater. He just clears the deck, and the club president carefully adjusts the balance. Dolly has a quick word with the club secretary and IGFA representative Daphne Nielsen. Jock is joined by well-known fishing writer Peter Goadby to check the weight. £1,145, our third over 1,000 for the season. Daphne notified me later that this achievement had prompted the Cairns Game Fishing Club to name me Angler of the Year, an honor I prize very highly. With the season nearly over, we set out to tag and release as many marlin as we can, in an effort to again win the Dumb Brain Trophy. By now, 7 of the marlin tagged at Cairns have been recovered, giving the authorities valuable information about their movements. By the way, our own taggings have run into the hundreds, ranging in weight from about 200 pounds to over 900. There goes another tag. Some swim away with the bait still in their mouths. They say their digestive juices soon dissolve the hook. Some fight so hard they faint. Then we put a small gaff in their dorsal fin and swim them alongside until they revive and swim away. He's getting stronger. And there he goes under his own power. Here's one of Dolly's filmed accounts of a very funny attempt to tag a very lively marlin with a very short tag pole. Dolly yells, "I'm running out of film. Throw it at him." But he won't present himself. I took her advice this time. Now watch the dart practice. It worked. With a longer pole, I can now tag him in midair. Here's one that was very close to the 1,000-pound mark, but he's in good shape, so we tag him and he swims away. Here's one all lit up like a Christmas tree. These are the marlin that give the anglers such satisfaction when they swim away. It's far more fun than hauling them in just for the picture. We sincerely hope that anglers will learn to enjoy the snip of the wire cutters instead of the snap of the camera shutters.